Growing up in the projects during the 1970s meant navigating a world of contradictions. Towering concrete blocks that housed vibrant communities, danger that coexisted with deep care, and poverty that never dimmed the light of joy and resilience. This was childhood shaped by survival, creativity, and unbreakable bonds. The towers, cities stacked on top of each other. Many projects were massive high-rise complexes built in the 1950s and 60s. Pruitt-Igoe had 33 11-story towers with a library, school, and playgrounds, housing about 10,000 residents before disrepair led to demolition. Elevators creaked and were often graffiti-covered. Kids raced up stairwells, and the smell of bleach mixed with cigarette smoke lingered in hallways. Families hauled laundry baskets to communal laundry rooms and hung clothes out of windows. Mothers shouted reminders from balconies while children played below. Children remember gazing at the skyline from upper floors and sitting on metal stoops, hearing echoes bounce off concrete walls. The towers felt like cities stacked on top of each other. Each floor its own neighborhood, each hallway a street. You knew your neighbors by sound. The clatter of pots, the thump of bass, the arguments that spilled into corridors. Living high up meant the world spread below like a patchwork quilt. But it also meant isolation when elevators broke and climbing 16 flights became routine. Still, there was pride in those towers. They were ours, and they held us together. Welfare rules and broken families. Rent could cost 75% of monthly income, and welfare rules forbade able-bodied men from living in units, forcing fathers to live elsewhere. Mothers juggled jobs while raising children. Fathers visited only during the day to avoid jeopardizing benefits. Older siblings became caregivers, bathing younger brothers and sisters in cramped bathrooms and sharing beds when relatives visited. Families relied on government cheese and food stamps. Kids helped carry groceries up flights of stairs and learned to stretch meals like beans and rice. Apartments were tight, packed with more people than rooms. Sleeping arrangements shifted constantly. Cousins on couches, grandmothers in recliners. Kids doubled up in beds. Privacy was a luxury no one had. Mothers worked 2 jobs, disappearing before dawn and returning bone-tired at night. Older siblings stepped up, cooking dinners of fried bologna and instant potatoes, making sure homework got done. Fathers came by when they could, slipping money into pockets and leaving before sunset. It was survival by committee, every person carrying more than their share to keep the household afloat. Gangs, protection and danger in equal measure. Gangs were present and violence was frequent, but gang leaders sometimes shielded families. Former Robert Taylor Homes residents recall gang members yelling, "Y'all go in the house," when shootings erupted. Mothers would grab their children and run from playgrounds when gunshots rang out. Kids learned to drop to the floor and stay away from windows. Despite the danger, gangs hosted back-to-school functions with concerts and free supplies, and some insisted members attend class and workouts. Parents kept living room couches pushed against walls to avoid stray bullets. Hearing a knock meant a neighbor warning that trouble was brewing. The streets had rules you learned fast: when to run, where to hide, who to trust. Gang members weren't just threats. Some were uncles, cousins, neighbors who grew up in the same buildings. They'd hand out backpacks in August and warn kids to stay in school, then turn around and defend their blocks with violence. It was complicated. You respected them because they protected you. Feared them because you'd seen what they could do. Survival meant reading signals. A certain look, a sudden silence. The way people moved. When tension rose, everyone knew. You didn't wait for permission. You just went inside. Chokes, free meals and community care. In projects like Robert Taylor Homes, community volunteers turned apartments into chokes, where children received free breakfast and lunch when families couldn't afford food. Kids lined up in converted apartments for pizza and pigs in a blanket, giggling as volunteers served hot meals. After eating, they played games and did homework together, supervised by neighborhood mothers before heading back outside. Field trips to parks and museums offered rare escapes. Kids rode yellow school buses and returned with souvenir pencils or hats. The smell of scrambled eggs and syrup filled narrow hallways every morning. Breakfast wasn't just a meal. It was a guarantee. A place where hunger didn't follow you. Volunteers remembered every name, asked about school, and made sure seconds were available. After lunch came arts and crafts, checkers tournaments, and help with reading. Mothers who didn't work outside the home ran these programs out of love and necessity, transforming tiny apartments into sanctuaries. Field trips were magic, escaping concrete for green parks, touching museum exhibits, riding buses that felt like adventures. Kids came home clutching free pencils like trophies, proof they'd seen something beyond the projects. Playing outside, freedom within danger. Despite hazards, children spent hours outdoors. Robert Taylor residents remember playing on playgrounds all day, sharing bikes, joining Boy Scout troops and paper routes, marching in the Bud Billiken Parade, and swimming in Washington Park's pool. The sounds of jump ropes, slapping concrete, double Dutch rhymes, and dominoes on card tables filled courtyards. Kids improvised fun, turning crates into basketball hoops, roller skating through hallways, and riding handmade go-karts down steep ramps. Familiar scents from fresh bread at the local bakery to milk delivered in glass jugs, mixed with chlorine wafting from the pool. Outside was freedom. You left after breakfast and didn't come back until the streetlights buzzed on. Bikes were communal. Whoever had one shared it. Jump rope tournaments drew crowds. Girls chanted rhymes passed down for generations while boys waited their turn to show off. Homemade go-karts built from scrap wood and shopping cart wheels raced down ramps, sometimes crashing spectacularly. Summer meant the public pool, packed shoulder to shoulder with kids shrieking and splashing. The Bud Billiken Parade was the highlight, marching bands, floats, and the whole neighborhood turning out in their best. Every day was an adventure you made yourself. Community as family. Residents forged tight bonds and looked after one another. One Cabrini-Green resident said there were foot races, dance contests, and candy factory handouts. And children never felt poor because the community provided acceptance and support. Neighbors yelled kids' names from balconies when dinner was ready, and elders corrected misbehavior as if every child was their own. Older teens supervised little ones in playgrounds and braided younger girls' hair on stoops. People shared sugar, milk, or cigarettes without keeping score. Many kids recall free milk duds from a nearby candy factory, block party DJs plugged into lampposts, and everyone knowing each other's business. You didn't need blood to be family. Miss Johnson on the 5th floor fed you if you showed up at dinner time. Mr. Brown fixed your bike without asking for a dime. If you cursed in the courtyard, any adult could discipline you and would. Older kids babysat the younger ones, teaching them to tie shoes and dodge trouble. Block parties materialized overnight. Someone dragged out speakers, extension cords snaked to streetlights, and the whole building danced. Free candy from the factory felt like Christmas. Privacy didn't exist, but neither did loneliness. Everybody knew your name, and that meant something. Buildings falling apart. Cheap construction and chronic underfunding led to mold, leaky pipes, collapsing ceilings, and infestations. Unoccupied buildings became drug dens. Parents placed pots under ceiling leaks and stuffed towels under doors to keep rats and roaches out. The stench of mildew and sewage was constant. Children navigated dark stairwells with broken lights and broken elevators. Games included hopping over puddles of sewage and avoiding loose steps. Buckets, mops, and space heaters were fixtures in living rooms. Some kids remember seeing friends fall from unsecured windows or balconies. The buildings were falling apart faster than anyone could fix them. Ceilings sagged and dripped brown water. You learned to sleep around the leaks. Roaches scattered when you flipped on the kitchen light. Rats scurried in the walls at night. Stairwells reeked of piss and rot. Light bulbs shattered or stolen, so you climbed in near darkness, feeling your way up. Elevators broke for weeks at a time. Abandoned units became shooting galleries and crack dens. Kids played games to survive it. Don't step on that stair. Jump over that puddle. Hold your breath past that smell. It was dangerous, dirty, and unfair, but it was home. And you made do. Food deserts and creative meals. Many projects had no nearby grocery stores. East Lake Meadows families lacked fresh produce and faced high unemployment and poverty. Mothers took buses across town for groceries. lugging bags through high-rise lobbies while reminding kids to help carry the good stuff upstairs. Mealtime creativity was essential, stretching meals with rice, beans, and powdered milk. Kids grew tomatoes in buckets on balconies. Government-issued cheese, bologna, and powdered eggs were staple foods. Children recalled trading school lunch desserts for fruit. Fresh food was a luxury. The closest real grocery store was miles away, so mothers rode 2 buses with toddlers in tow, hauling bags that cut into their fingers. Kids carried what they could: canned goods, bread, the precious gallon of milk. Dinner meant making magic out of nothing. Beans stretched with water, rice fried with leftover scraps, powdered milk that never tasted right. Government cheese melted beautifully, though, and became grilled cheese, mac and cheese, anything with cheese. Some families grew tomatoes or peppers in old buckets on windowsills, tiny gardens that felt like victories. At school, kids swapped desserts for apples or oranges, rare treats that felt like treasure. Security guards and nightly fear. By the late 1980s, violence was so common in some projects that housing authorities hired guards with German shepherds. Robberies and drug dealing were widespread. Kids saw guards patrolling with barking dogs and were told to be indoors by sundown. Sirens and police radios were nightly sounds. Parents warned children about dealers in stairwells and told them to avoid certain floors or buildings. Streetlights and security lights often failed, so residents used flashlights, candles, or the glow from TV sets to move around halls at night. Security guards walked the grounds with dogs that growled and lunged, meant to scare away trouble but scaring kids just as much. Sirens became white noise, every night, sometimes multiple times. Police cars circled the lots, spotlights sweeping windows. Parents gave strict instructions. Don't go to the 8th floor. Stay away from that building. If someone offers you something, run. Dealers posted up in stairwells, transactions happening in plain sight. You learn to look straight ahead, move fast, and mind your business. When the lights went out, and they often did, hallways turned pitch black. Families kept flashlights by the door, moved carefully, and listened hard. Danger was always close. But you adapted. You had to. Finding joy in poverty. East Lake Meadows residents said poverty wasn't the whole story. Families held birthday parties, and children played in water from open fire hydrants, finding light in darkness. Summer memories include running through hydrant sprays in bare feet, squealing with joy and comparing who could stand under the cold blast the longest. Impromptu block parties sprang up when someone played a record. Kids danced, did the bump, and mimicked Soul Train moves under streetlights. In cramped apartments, children used spoons as microphones and drummed on pots to songs like "I'll Take You There." Learned by ear because lessons were unaffordable. Joy wasn't bought, it was created. Fire hydrants burst open on scorching days, water gushing into the street. Kids ran through screaming and laughing, daring each other to stand in the strongest spray. Someone would drag out a radio and suddenly there was a party, dancing, singing, showing off moves copied from TV. Inside, apartments became stages. Spoons turned into microphones, pots into drums, siblings into backup singers. Birthday cakes were simple, but candles were blown out with the same excitement as anywhere else. Poverty shaped childhood, but it didn't steal it. Laughter was free, and so was imagination. Tough love and self-defense. Growing up in dangerous environments, parents taught self-defense. A former Pruitt-Igoe resident recalls his mother insisting he fight a gang leader so others would stop picking on him. Older brothers practiced punches on pillows while parents explained that backing down could invite more trouble. Spankings were common discipline. Sayings like, "A hard head makes a soft behind," underscored that misbehavior had consequences. Switches cut from trees, belts hanging on door hooks, and the words "don't let me have to come get you" are often mentioned in reminiscences. Love was tough because the world outside was tougher. Mothers pushed sons to stand up and fight, not out of cruelty but survival. Bullies didn't stop unless you made them. Brothers taught you to throw a punch, keep your chin down, never show fear. Discipline was swift. A switch snapped from a tree branch, a belt pulled from a hook, or just the look that made you freeze. Phrases like, "I brought you into this world, I'll take you out," weren't jokes. Parents believed fear kept you alive. Respect kept you safe. It hurt, but it also prepared you. The lessons were hard, but so was the neighborhood. Good times and cultural validation. Television shows like Good Times portrayed a black family living in a Chicago project and tackled racism, unemployment, and racial pride. Residents watched because they finally saw their lives reflected. Families crowded around wood-paneled TVs with rabbit ear antennas to hear JJ yell "Dynamite" and debate which character they related to most. Kids reenacted episodes in hallways, quoting wisecracks and singing the theme song, while parents compared the fictional Evans family to real life. Radios on windowsills blasted Marvin Gaye, the Staple Singers, and James Brown. Music flowed through concrete walls and kept spirits high. Seeing Good Times felt like validation proof that your life mattered enough to be on TV. Everyone had a favorite character. JJ made you laugh, Florida made you cry, and James showed you what a father should be. Kids recited lines word for word in the hallways, pretending they lived in apartment 17C. Music was the other lifeline. Radios perched on windowsills played non-stop. Marvin asking, "What's going on?" Aretha demanding respect. James screaming. He felt good. The music traveled through walls, linked apartments, turned the whole building into one big stereo. It gave you pride, rhythm, identity. It reminded you that you were part of something bigger. Block parties and community celebrations. Projects had vibrant social calendars. Foot races, dance competitions, and parades like Chicago's Bud Billiken kept spirits high. Residents closed off streets, set up picnic tables and grilled ribs and hot dogs, while DJs used extension cords to power speakers from lampposts. Kids competed in double Dutch tournaments and talent shows. Winners proudly wore paper crowns or homemade trophies. Floats for neighborhood parades were decorated with crepe paper and balloons. Even those who couldn't afford costumes still marched and cheered. Block parties were the highlight of summer. Streets shut down, grills fired up, and the smell of barbecue filled the air. Extension cords snaked from apartment windows to lampposts, powering massive speakers that blasted music until midnight. Kids showed off in double Dutch tournaments, ropes slapping pavement in perfect rhythm. Talent shows turned shy kids into stars. Winners wore crowns made from construction paper like they'd won Grammys. The Bud Billiken parade was sacred. Floats covered in crepe paper, marching bands. Everyone dressed their best. Even if you had no costume, you marched anyway, waving and smiling. These events weren't distractions from hardship. They were proof that joy could thrive anywhere. Demolition and displacement. By the 1980s through 1990s, policies like Chicago's Plan for Transformation aimed to demolish high-rise projects. 23 towers in Cabrini-Green housed nearly 15,000 residents before being replaced with mixed-income housing, displacing longtime families. Families packed belongings into cardboard boxes and watched wrecking balls smash the homes where generations had grown up. Children bused to unfamiliar suburbs, missed their old friends, and felt lost amid manicured lawns and strict homeowners association rules. Former residents mourned the erasure of their culture and community, as luxury condos rose where their basketball courts and playgrounds once stood. Demolition felt like betrayal. Families who'd lived there for decades were handed vouchers and told to leave. You watched bulldozers tear down the building where you were born, where your grandmother died, where your best friend lived. They called it transformation, but it felt like erasure. Kids were bused to suburbs with rules they didn't understand. No playing outside past dark. No music too loud. No sitting on front step. Everything was clean, quiet, lonely. They missed the noise, the crowds, the familiarity. Now luxury condos stand where playgrounds used to be. The new residents have no idea what came before. The culture, the community, the memories all paved over. The real legacy, survival with dignity. Despite poverty, residents insisted poverty, crime, and drugs wasn't the complete experience. They found light and happiness in community bonds. Neighbors drove each other to work, organized rent strikes for better services, and created businesses out of nothing. Kids learned to sew, cook, and fix bikes from elders. They decorated apartments with hand-painted murals and crocheted curtains. The projects fostered a spirit of endurance and pride. People made a way out of nowhere and still remember laughter, outweighing hardship. The story of the projects isn't just struggle, it's survival with dignity. Neighbors carpooled to jobs, shared childcare, organized rent strikes. When the city ignored broken boilers, entrepreneurs sold everything from hair braids to home-cooked plates out of their apartments. Elders taught skills: how to hem pants, fry chicken, patch tires. Apartments became canvases, hand-painted murals, crocheted doilies, family photos covering every wall. People made beauty out of nothing. Yes, there was poverty. Yes, there was danger, but there was also laughter that echoed through stairwells, birthday parties with 30 people in a 2-bedroom, and a belief that tomorrow could be better. That resilience, that refusal to be broken, that's the real legacy. Conclusion: growing up in the projects in the 1970s wasn't the childhood anyone would choose, but it was the childhood that shaped a generation, teaching lessons that comfort could never teach. Lessons about survival, about community, about making joy out of scraps, and finding family in strangers. The towers are gone now, demolished and replaced. But the people who grew up there carry those lessons still. They learned that home isn't a place. It's the people who hold you up when the elevators break and the lights go out. They learned that poverty can't kill joy if you refuse to let it. And they learned that the strongest communities are forged in the hardest circumstances. That's the legacy of the projects. Not the crime or the decay that the world remembers, but the resilience, the creativity, the unbreakable bonds that no wrecking ball could ever destroy.